welcome to episode 39 of Cinema Curse. Tonight, as fall fastly approaches and October beckons to us with wispy fingers made of ghoulish fog, we're gonna talk about some of the summer's hottest horror films, including MaXXXine, Longlegs, Trap, and Cuckoo. I'm your wicked game master, Connor Lloyd Crews. The Joey Chestnut of talking about movies, Edwin Gomez. Unfortunately, he heard me talk about these movies and he went ghosts, and he ran and hid before I could tell, like, no, none of these are about ghosts. It's mostly serial killers. And
monsters.
Yeah. What was that?
I said, and monsters.
Monsters.
Serial killers and monsters, yeah.
Yeah, serial killers and ghouls. So, who else is with us today? It's Brian.
What's up, guys?
And Scott.
Hey, good to see ya.
And joining us for the first time in a while with his GB and J, it's Casey.
Hi.
That's pretty sweet there.
GB and J.
Thank you guys for joining. I would like to thank Marina Sakamoto and her band Shinken for the use of their song Curse off of the EP She Nods, which we used for our opening. It's been 287 days since the strike ended and the AMPTP still sucks. How are y'all?
Doing
good. Catching up on a bunch of movies these past 2 weeks to what we're discussing.
Yeah. Let's. What was that? I heard something. That was weird. I heard some feedback.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
I'm going to let's go ahead and get this show on the road. We got a lot of movies to talk about. First, let's talk about A Quiet Place Day One, featuring this cat and Lupita, the two of the three stars of the movie here. Who wants to give a brief summary of A Quiet Place Day One and your basic thoughts? Who wants to start?
I'm gonna keep quiet on a few of these.
Scott.
Okay, A Quiet Place Day One is a prequel to the franchise. It is, as noted before, Day One. So it's the first day the aliens arrive. It's a different character than it's not Emily Blunt and her family. It's Lupita. She plays a hospice patient who comes to New York for a field trip when
with her cat?
Said invasion occurs. Yes, with her cat. When said invasion occurs, and the movie is about her survival. I, for one, did not have a lot of expectations going in. I didn't know really what to expect. I liked the first one. I thought it was very clever, and I thought it was a good directing job by John Krasinski. Definitely a major announcement. He can make bigger films. The second one was fine. I thought it was more of the same. I kind of wish it went bigger. And I didn't think it had much of a good third act. I thought it ended too soon. So this one, I thought as long as they had the good attacks, it was fun, I'd enjoy it. And I ended up really liking it. I was surprised how much I really, really enjoyed this movie. I thought Lupita was great. I thought the cat was great. I thought the storyline, I had no idea she was going to be a hospice patient. They don't really talk about that in any of the marketing. And the story being her, like, kind of finding a reason to live, or just her will to live, despite it being the end, I thought it was really powerful and really well done. And some of the scares were really well done. I enjoyed this, and I thought it showed it had life into the franchise. At this point, considering how successful it was, it would seem that we're probably going to get a bunch more Quiet Place films.
Before we get to the more dissenting opinions, I mean, I do have to be honest. Out of the five kind of main movies, I like each one more than the last. Like in the order we're talking about them is like ascending. Like this is my least favorite of the five, but but I still liked it. I largely agree with Scott saying a great cat. Cat's probably the best part. Pretty fun. I was looking for a fun little alien invasion thriller. I don't give a fuck about this franchise. I don't really care about John Krasinski as like an artist. He's apparently
where my if head's at.
He's apparently in Canada scabbing for some sort of thing right now because they have like a writer's strike up there right now, or an actor's strike.
Oh man.
And reminded me of Resident Evil a little bit, like 2 and 3 when they're in the subway, but I don't really have a lot to say, but I thought it was good. What are these bottom two got to say?
You just call me a bottom?
Yeah, bottom two. That's really disrespectful.
You're below me.
I wasn't crazy about it. I mean, I really liked the first one. I also thought the second one was a rehash, but also I kind of was like, oh, never mind. This isn't about the second one. Yeah, I thought it was a little redundant, but the same thing with what Scott said. I hope that they make more. Like, I hope it's just Final Destination. They just put a bunch of random A-listers in there and then make them run from the Demogorgons,
I mean, like, I will say this, yeah, this is my least favorite of them, and, next week we're going to talk about the Alien sequels, including the new one. And I am, generally speaking, I'm kind of more interested in getting sequels for like the newer franchises than just getting like if like I don't like we don't need another fucking Jason Voorhees movie. Let's have Megan have her 10 movies, and then
sure,
and then let the guy from Malignant have some movies. Let's have we'll have like a half dozen Smile movies. It's gonna get more Baroque. It's gonna be like post-apocalyptic by the fourth one, and I'm generally speaking more interested in that than like rehashing an older franchise that's just banking on the fact that people like it in the past as opposed to actually now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think there's a lot to do with this franchise because they've only been in New York. We could see what happens like all over the country and honestly all over the world. What's A Quiet Place?
I think that's the biggest thing I was kind of hoping Tokyo. A little bit more for in this one. I think 3 movies we know nothing about this world. What this thing is. Obviously Lupita was great. She's great. I mean, that's a given. I heard she worked through her stuff with losing Chadwick and all that. That's dope. Like, that's great that she got to process that. But as far as the film goes, it was just, what are we doing? Why are we doing this to me the whole time? And I forgot about it after I've seen it. Like, I haven't really thought about it again. Yeah. Other than, again, thinking like, the cat's dope. Lupita's great. And those were things kind of going in. I knew. I just, again, if anything, I wanted to find out something. Just something. A piece of, like, anything that this world is about. That, Well, and then, honestly, my other biggest criticism is just it wasn't day one. I mean, it's day, 3 through 9 or whatever it is. It's not day one. Give me a little bit more of that. But yeah, come on, dude. Like, literally, a movie opens up, you have some shit happen, and then everybody wakes up, Manhattan's cleared out. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't spend like a lot of time doing like any invasion stuff that, I don't know, I would have wanted to just at least bring this world to more cohesive places with 3 movies in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say the lore was never really what this series was about. Like, and I guess if they keep making more, they can get into that. But I think they are, weird. Like, I remember my problem with the second one was like, I said the first one was Alien, and the second one they should have made Aliens, especially since it ended with them figuring out how to kill the.
Right.
And here's one thing I do have a problem with the series. What are we calling the creatures?
See? There's nothing. We have no idea.
Sound boys.
Sound voice. All right. so Emily Blunt and kids just learn how to like turn down the sound boys.
Yeah.
So for like the sequel, I thought they were going to use those weapons more, and like the kids were going to maybe like lead that community.
Yeah.
But maybe they could do that for like the third one. I had an idea for like, at least for the name for the third one, they could just call it A Quiet Place, Bring the Noise. And that's like humans versus the sound boys.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's one way to do it. I think, you know, when I think of like post-apocalyptic sort of stuff, my favorite structure is the way the Romero did the Of the Dead movies, which kind of they've done with the 28 Days Later things. They're kind of expanding on even more, where it's like this exponential, each movie kind of moves further and further and further, where we're seeing how it goes. And because I do think there's there's the potential for these types of this kind of sandbox of a world is that there's a lot of different stories you can tell, and like we don't really care necessarily as much about the lead character as it is about the creature and like what story that can be used to tell.
And that's just it. I mean, we had a great character. Lupita was fantastic. Everything about it was great. The cat, I mean, obviously, like I said, the cat, but it was that, what are we, outside of the human moments in this film, what are we actually doing?
Yeah, I'm not going to defend it too strong. I think it's I think it's relatively worth checking out if you're kind of into this. But you know,
one thing I do want to mention is it was from the director of Pig, and it very much felt like the director of Pig in the way that, like, I know we talk about like Twisters came from the director Minari, and people were like, oh, it definitely felt that way. I'm like, well, I guess they were both in Oklahoma and like had some good shots in the field, but like this movie really did, like, especially in the quiet moments, I felt was from that director, like him just making a big budget film. So I got to give shout out to that.
And the appearance of Alex Wolff.
Yes.
But yeah, let's just, so we're not, I don't want to dilly-dally too long. I feel I'm good with my Quiet Place thoughts. Anyone got any big Quiet Place thoughts left?
Not me.
All right, let's move on to a movie starring these two cuties, Giancarlo and Kevin, my favorites from. You don't like Giancarlo or Kevin?
No, I'm just talking about the movie.
He's already ready.
I think Giancarlo and Kevin are great.
He's like, I'm beyond this intro, man. I'm ready to talk some MaXXXine.
Well, I guess I'll intro this one. You know, it's the third X movie. MaXXXine is, you know, it's at the 80s. She's in LA. She's trying to move from porn into being a real actor, you know, quote unquote, and like she's like in The Puritan 2 is the name of the big movie she's starring in, this like horror film. And you know, then they kind of use I think it's Richard Chase, the Night Stalker, and this new killer who shows up, who's seems to be connected to her past. You know, I think I also don't have a lot to say. It's weird. I like this whole trilogy. I feel very positive neutral on, which is to say that I think they're all good. I get why people would love them. I also get why people wouldn't like them. I think that X is to me the weakest, just because it's the one that feels the most just like Pastiche, and Pearl might be the strongest because it feels like the most separated from that, the one that's like the most like this weird, you know, Technicolor character study of like an insane woman. And you know, I like the neon noir elements of this. I like these two guys, especially Kevin Bacon playing the sleaziest man on earth. But you know, I'm kind of mid on Ty West. I always have been. These movies don't really change that for me. Even though I probably like these a little more than usual because they feel a little more like well put together and not unless like somebody wandering around a house for 80 minutes. But what do y'all think? I know Scott hasn't seen this one.
I was trying to find the thumbs down emoji, but I couldn't find it fast enough. I don't like it, but I don't think I like Ty West. I think I've given up on him.
I like him as an act. I like when he gets killed really early in You're Next.
Yeah. That's actually how I got into him. Was I was like, oh, the guy from You're Next made a movie.
That's funny.
And then I watched House of the Devil, and
I didn't hate House of the Devil, but like I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It was sort of one of those that I was excited to see what the output was going to be from there. And like the rest of you, I just haven't really.
I'll take any of these over House of the Devil. House of the Devil, I feel like, is really slow, and I understand that it's trying to do the thing that Tarantino's doing in Death Proof, where it's like, no, these movies, like, the part of it is that they're boring, and it's like, well, I don't want to watch it then. Like, no thanks. Skip.
You're right. There's a reason I'm not watching it. I love Death.
But yeah, you know.
Yeah, no, I think. I guess really what it comes down to is that I understand what he's doing. I just don't like the way that he's doing it.
Yeah.
I feel like when he like pays homage, he's kind of using it more as a crutch than like a vehicle for his own kind of voice.
Yeah.
And I actually think MaXXXine probably. I don't know. It's hard to get over my dislike of Pearl, but I think MaXXXine is my least favorite actually, because it almost feels like he doesn't even care about MaXXXine as a character anymore. Mm-hmm. And also I don't think it's a horror movie. Like I thought Pearl was a little bit closer. Like I get what you're saying, Connor, about how he deviates from that. Mm-hmm. And I think Pearl does do that in a way that is like, that there's an explanation for it. At least I think MaXXXine is like, I don't really understand the movie that we're making, and it almost feels like it's just weird, especially considering how, you know, she's like, I'm Maxine fucking Minx and da da da. Like mm-hmm. I kind of feel like she's secondary to the entire plot.
Well, I think after the beginning, I mean, she opens up so strong, that film, you're like, all right, we're going to see some MaXXXine. This is going to be in. Like, I remember even the audience, I was like first, you know, one of the opening screenings or whatever. So full crowd of people excited to see it. And that initial, like, yes, we're in this movie, we're going to get this MaXXXine vibe, that just never really pans out again. And then just kind of gets lost in its own narrative. I think I didn't really like the using the serial killer element. I would have rather had something either fictional or, I don't know, it just wasn't utilized. It was just sort of like thrown in there just to have a connection to something. And then I thought that third act was a nightmare.
See, weirdly, like the first act and the third act are the only parts that I remember. So I actually do like those. The one moment I really like is her confronting the Buster Keaton guy and stepping mm-hmm. on his nuts and ripping his testicles open. I thought that was a fun
That's
time.
Great, yeah.
A fun time at the movies, and I did like that third act because it did center her. But I don't really remember it, so I'm not gonna defend these that hard. I think it's a cool experiment. You know, if you really hate him, hey, take it up with Marty. Because but
I think that's the biggest thing is halfway through, and a lot of these, you know, this is the theme of the summer horror for me anyways, it's just that like they're fine, they're forgettable fine in a lot of ways, you know, some are less than others, but I don't feel like I'm going to be thinking about these movies 6 months from now.
I have a question about MaXXXine. Am I supposed to like know who her dad is? Like am I supposed to remember him from another movie?
They do set him up at the beginning, like they show the footage of her from the footage at the end of X. They just don't repeat it a lot because it's like the footage at the end. There's like this preacher. There's this preacher on the screen, and he's in X a couple of times on the TV. And at the end of X is kind of spoilers for both movies, but not super. So just skip ahead till the next time code, or mute me until you see my background change. We find out that MaXXXine is the daughter of this like famous evangelical preacher at the end of X, and that's kind of like seems to be kind of a character motivation as to why she wants to like get into porn, as like a big time like fuck you. And they show that scene again, and that's the dude. It's her. It's her dad. So
I forgot. Thank you.
Yeah.
I almost would have wanted like the third act stuff, like if it had been more of what the main plot led to. I guess I would like. I like that kind of stuff. I mean, and thematically, you and I are on the page with that kind of a theme. I just think if it was going to be that, I wanted it fleshed out into that world versus just like tagging it on at the end as being like, well, that's just what we're doing.
I would argue
that semantical.
A lot of these movies are about dads.
They're dads
that we're talking about tonight. Cool. It's a very dad-centric night. But yeah, I don't really. I think they're worth checking out. I don't really have the same sort of. Yeah, I don't know. We'll maybe get into a bigger conversation in a minute, but I want to move on to a movie I think we'll talk about a little longer, which is Longlegs.
Longlegs.
Throwing up a picture. I had Nick in the opening. I had to get some Micah visual representation.
Lee Harker.
I will say, yeah, best new character we've got in a very, 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 very long time. That's fact.
New character we've got in a long time. Oh my god! Exactly.
Yeah, why don't you, Casey? Do you want to give us a summary of Longlegs and your basic thoughts? Just paragraph summary.
I'm gonna do my best. Okay. Longlegs. There's this serial killer. His name is Longlegs. And he kills. Oh, jeez, I was so confused by this movie. He kills girls on.
Well, I think you got to give the broad strokes. Let's not get into. Think about it from the front end.
Casey, don't feel bad. I got high when Love Lies Bleeding. I almost did the whole movie.
Yeah, you just started describing
my summary. So
it's he kills whole families, but it seems like he's not actually doing anything. He's like influencing them. And Lee Harker here is an FBI agent who's like slightly. When I do this enough, you can see my little Bloomsday hat up there. Is a slightly psychic a special agent who gets put on the case, and maybe there's more to this connection here than we think. I think if you had asked me months ago, Connor, do you think when we talk about Longlegs you'll be the most positive on it? And I would have answered fuck no, but here we are.
It's sad.
When we get to the next two, I'm genuinely very positive on. Longlegs, I need to get more away from it, but the more I think about it, but I'm curious to hear what other people think first and how they want to say it, because I want to be able to shut down y'all's arguments with missile-like precision. So what do y'all want to say?
Lee Harker, character of all time.
I do.
Monroe, innocent.
I do really like. I think the performances are great. I think most people who've seen it really like the performances, especially Micah and Nick. But I even like the mom a lot too. I like Alicia Witt. I know our friend Paul, who's sometimes on, was telling me, was talking about how he thought she was like one of the worst actors he's ever seen. And I'll get to like the tone and performance stuff in a second. But I don't know. Yeah.
I liked the movie. I thought, I guess, I thought the first act was amazing. But by the time we got to like what was happening and sort of why and everything, I kind of lost interest.
Fair.
Yeah, I felt like watching it. I mean, you guys know I was extremely excited for it and went to like one of the earlier screenings, the Vista, with the Q&A after and everything. And it was one of those that I just couldn't wait. I was so excited. And by that midpoint, when I started to figure out where we were kind of going with it, that's when I lost steam too. And once that like idea of like, oh, this is what's happening, I didn't like it. I mean, I think my biggest thing with Oz Perkins in general, because I'd watched The Black Coat's Daughter recently as well. I think aesthetically, he's got a great film. Like, he knows what he's got to do. Like, I mean, he obviously, we've seen so many movies where you're like, I don't know if this person's even watched a movie before, but this is clearly not that. This guy knows what he's doing. And I think that the biggest thing is writing for both films. I think it just loses, especially toward the end. I think it's just kind of over ambitious and he's just too busy trying to just get a complete sentence to happen, which he does. I just don't think it's. I mean, we've seen things that I think just are better done. And for me, at this point we're at, can't we just see something like really, really new? And when you're dealing with like satanic cult, I don't know. And I feel like that's just something that we haven't done in a bunch of these. You know, we did the satanic films not that long ago, and that was sort of a problem I had with those too.
Yeah.
You know, I think, like I said, I don't hate this movie. And I think this is the frustrating thing, is a movie like this I want to love because this is, you know, it's right in that pocket, but I get frustrated with, you know.
Yeah, I think I think the thing that I keep coming back to when thinking about this movie is, well, there's a couple of things. But on a writing level, what to me makes it interesting and what makes me think about it more and more is how much I feel, I don't think it was necessarily consciously, but how much this feels like it's about Oz making a movie about his own family in a lot of ways. And this kind of gets into spoilers, so I think I'm going to throw up the spoilers tag, because I think it's hard to talk about the totality of this movie without getting into back half stuff. So, you know, we eventually find out that Longlegs has known Lee's mom forever, and like Lee's mom is the accomplice. And, you know, Osgood Perkins, you know, Nepo baby to a certain degree. And I don't think Anthony Perkins ended his, you know, was at the end of his life doing Psycho for the Beginning for TV. So I don't know how much weight old Tony was throwing around. But you know, notably, Anthony, and hopefully I don't speak out of turn. I'm not trying to insult anybody's life or legacy or anything like that, but I think it's you know, it's worth noting that Anthony Perkins was a gay man who, for most of his adult life, was kind of hiding from that and was trying to not be that, was going to classes to not be gay. And you know, I think there's some interesting stuff here where, because Longlegs does kind of become this sort of father figure when you figure in the mother, and Longlegs himself clearly doesn't like who he is. There's like the visual thing where he's clearly tried to change his appearance so much, and the way that this is sort of affected this family over so many decades. Even the fact that Oz, before he was a director, was an actor first, and the fact that Lee, early on, we find out that when she was a kid she wanted to be an actor. I don't know, I think there's a lot of interesting thematic stuff there, that, again, I feel like it's probably not super intentional, but it feels like the more you kind of break it down, it feels like there's something going on there that's interesting. That's him dealing with his very strange, obviously, family that he grew up in. Yeah, so that's, I think that's a big thing for me that like it has elevated it. That and like I guess my other thing is I've seen people like, again, our buddy Paul, I'm kind of ragging on Paul, I'm responding to some of Paul's criticism, so Paul, if you're watching this, sorry. But there's like a preciousness to the style, and in a weird way it like reminds me of, people always like, what would it be like if Wes Anderson directed a horror movie, and I kind of think it's this. I can
see that, actually. Yeah, definitely.
I kind of liked that vibe in a lot of ways. Like, I liked there's an artifice to it. You know, I've seen people complain about the performances and talk about how, you know, Nick Cage wasn't scary or whatever, and it feels a little bit like in college when people were like, oh, like, what's the deal with David Lynch? Like, are all his performances so bad? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, maybe it feels like a choice and not just a sloppy filmmaker or anything.
Yeah, I mean, to go even to like Nicolas Cage's performance, whether or not you can like it is one thing, but a bad actor could not do that performance.
Yeah.
Not that well, not that consistently.
Yeah.
And we'll find out this Halloween when we see a whole bunch of shitty Longlegs Halloween costumes, I imagine, and a bunch of just guys going like, "Ooh, I'm Longlegs," and "Who can we?" And
they're not gonna yell the "Mommy, Daddy!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I will say, I saw this movie after, like, I'd say a month after it came out, maybe like 3 weeks at the like minimum. So like the hype had kind of died down, and it was interesting because I was seeing with people who like clearly were just going to see a movie that they heard was scary on a Friday night. The opening when Nick Cage first appeared, woman in my audience just screamed in terror just the second he appeared on screen. Just,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
And I mean, like, and she meant it. Like, she was terrified of him.
That's great.
There's a beat towards the end when the mom dressed up as the nun appears with the shotgun. I do remember both times seeing it. I felt the air in the room get sucked out. People be like, "Oh fuck," because of the way it's done.
It's very well directed. It's very well made. Narratively, like, even thematically, I can see what you're saying, and that stuff kind of works.
Yeah.
But narratively, like, is the spoilers still on?
Yeah.
Okay, because then I guess we should now at least talk about, like, the big thing, which is that it's Satan is involved.
Yeah. Mr. Downstairs.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love that stuff.
I do too. It was just hollow.
The idea of it, but I didn't think it was very well done. Like, I don't know. Like, if that's what we were doing, I wish we would have done it from the start. Like, I love the first act because it felt serial killerish, and then when it was it ended up being like an episode of this show Evil, where it's just like, oh, case of the week. Evil. You guys haven't seen it. It's kind of like the X-Files, but with religion instead of aliens, and that's what this kind of ended up being. And I don't know. I just don't think it's kind of like, okay. And then the ending at the house with the family, when it was just like, we know what's going to happen. Why isn't she stopping this? It was just very strange.
Yeah. Go ahead. Somebody else. I've been talking a lot.
I wasn't entirely against. I mean, I like the idea that, like, Satan is involved. I could have lived without the dolls, to be quite honest with you. I think the dolls are like the glaring problem.
That was when I ducked out. Like, when that happened, I was like, oh, I'm out.
Yeah. I was like, okay, so he works for Satan, or the mom works for. They both work for Satan, and it was like, there's a ball in the head, and I forgot that he cut out the ball like an hour ago, and whole thing. But yeah, I thought the same thing. I think it's really really good. Actually, probably until the friggin' dolls. Until the bit after, I think it's when. Oh, I'm sorry, I have the cat. After the mom shoots Lee's doll in the head, that was where it kind of like fell apart for me. But what I will say was, Connor, everything that you were saying about Oz Perkins' family is true. I read a interview with him about how he based literally everything you said around his family.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I don't know. I was totally cool with the dolls. Like, it felt like it was building towards the dolls. I thought the evil metal orbs, I liked that. It's funny because I've heard so much on both sides of certain people saying it explained too much. Some people explaining too little. A lot of people complaining about what things it did or didn't explain or whatever. And I don't know. Like, I get it to a certain degree. But I don't know. I didn't have because I'm usually the one who the most is like has little writerly problems with stuff, and to me it felt very like logical. Like, yeah, this is the third act that comes with this story that I've seen. It didn't feel like a derailment or anything. It felt pretty much natural to me. I mean, I think you probably could cut like 10 minutes from the movie and make it a little stronger, but
that's true.
But that's like most movies, I think. And I like that last big confrontation. Like it's a fun, kind of weirdly funny scene when they're all talking about like, we'll go to the kitchen and like we'll be back in a bit. Well, I'll be back in a minute.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I love when she draws the triangle, zodiac. Hell yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I'm into it.
I love that aesthetic. I'm so into all that. Yeah,
I know.
I just didn't. I felt very underwhelmed by how it was utilized at the end of the day. But teach their own with it. I mean, if it did it for you, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen, you know.
Sure. But still, to the level where you're like, I'm satisfied with this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's cool.
I was satisfied with it. I got what I wanted out of it. I think in a weird way, it kind of pitched itself not pitched itself, but like it almost like it hit the wrong place where I think there was a lot of people coming in from kind of the A24 side of things expecting it to be on that kind of like quote unquote elevated horror level, and then maybe there were people on like the lower side to a certain degree coming in on thinking it's just going to be like a, you know, some sort of spook blast thing, and it's kind of in between those, and I kind of appreciated its commitment to being middle brow also. Micah reminded me also a lot. Micah should play sisters with Brie Larson. I think.
Brie Larson. I can see that. Yeah.
Both psychic geniuses. I love Lee Harker.
Well, those are my Longlegs thoughts. Anybody got any else? Them long ass legs. I do think that these are all like, people should check them out. I always kind of hate it when a show talking about movies, like their general opinions, like, don't watch this movie, don't waste your time, and it's like, I don't know.
But I think even the way we always talk about movies, though, like I would never diss anybody watching a movie.
I don't think you know what I mean. Like we're like, I don't think any of us are doing that. Yeah, like honestly, like not at all. Like it means so much more when you don't like a movie if you've actually seen it. I'm not going to name names, but sometimes we have a person on this podcast who likes to talk a lot of shit about movies he hasn't even seen, and his words carry no weight. Up, Scott. Yeah. Sorry to out you like that, Scott. But
what can I say? I've got my opinions. I don't need facts.
I mean, but even Longlegs, clearly there was a lot of people who loved it, had a great time.
Yeah,
that's dope. It sold a lot of movies. You know, it got people to go into a theater. That's great. Yeah. I'm all for that. So at the end of the day, if you got a good time with it, we need more of it for sure.
That's the only way we'll get more Lee Harkers.
Yeah. Lee Harker 2.
Maybe we got to get Lee Harker like a true detective series. 2.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want, actually.
Yeah.
As put her in make a trilogy, and then there's a crossover with her and Benoit Blanc.
Yes. 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 If God is real. Yeah.
Well, speaking of two cuties, let me change my background to this image right here. Got two cuties right here.
That's right. That's right.
How about you wanna try this one, Casey? Given the summary for Trap.
I sure do. Because it's the easiest one.
It's the one you've liked the most. I know.
Oh yeah, I like it. I like it every day since. I like it more all the time. M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. Josh Hartnett is taking his daughter to essentially a Taylor Swift concert, but she's different and saves the world and makes better music. It's M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, Lady. Her name is Suleika. And in the process, Josh Hartnett's like, "Oh man, what are all these cops doing here at this Taylor Swift concert?" And another great character of the summer. He's like, "Yeah, all these cops are here." He's a fantastic.
Totally.
He's like, "All these cops are here because we're gonna catch this serial killer, the butcher." And Josh Hartnett, the butcher. We're here to catch Longlegs. And
if Longlegs would have ended with trap, I would have been all in.
If Longlegs,
for sure.
we have a bunch of vinyls of 70 rock albums set up as a trap. We got a giant box over it with a stick and a string attached.
Is that Jefferson Starship?
Yeah.
Wow. That is the glam of glam.
Is this the original pressing of T-Rex?
And Josh Hartnett is like, "Oh no, I'm the butcher." And over the course of the movie is like, "Oh, I'm not going to get out of here. What can I do to just fuck shit up before I'm eventually caught?" And then chaos ensues. I mean, I like the route it goes later on.
Yeah. It's you know, I'm a big I thought about actually splitting this off, and maybe in the future we'll do it. My fucking camera, like the focus on it sucks about. Okay, there we go. If you ever see me doing this, it's because I'm trying to get my fucking camera the focus. I get it. But I have so much respect for him. You know, he's self-financing these movies, which if people don't know the difference between produce and finance, you know, he's like actually putting up his own money, which means he's making bank on the back end, but it's also a much bigger risk. And you know, like it's funny, we were talking about this, and I saw someone else literally say this, Brian, independent of our conversation. So I have a fact of it is because back when M first started to rise to prominence with Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, people were comparing him a lot to Spielberg. And I get it actually a lot visually. I think they both have a very similar effortlessness to the way that they do like visual language, in the way where if you're not paying attention, you're like, oh, it's just shot normally. But then if you actually pay attention and know how movies are made, you're like, oh, this all looks like a big time pain in the ass, actually. But I also think, and it makes sense because, Brian, you're not as hot on this director, but on a narrative level, he's a lot closer to like a De Palma or something, where he's making these very like weird sort of arch, sort of Baroque, giant like kind of plot statements, a lot of things that don't really make sense, but it's all for the sake of just like the fun of like the movies and like the fact that like this is like fun weird stuff. It doesn't have the same, you know, it has like a kind of different vibe than the De Palma stuff in terms of the writing. It doesn't have you know, M is not sexist in the way that De Palma is, but you know, I love that. I love him for that and that for him. And it is very goofy, but I'm on board with it. I love this guy. I love these gentlemen behind me.
I know you and I saw. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
Well, I was just gonna say, I know that I'm, you know, you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of his films, but I respect, like, it's the biggest thing that we always say is that whole self-financing thing. That's the dream of any creator right there, is literally, I can do what I want and I can actually make this happen for myself. And that's incredible, you know, so good for him. Like, you know, like I said to you, Connor, I think we're seeing something. It's just that he's got a fan base. You and you guys were all excited. Kate, you guys were really like, I love this filmmaker. I'm into it. And I like that. I honestly, over these years of following him, I kind of appreciate him more now, seeing you guys through it, because it's cool. Like, it doesn't resonate with me in the same way, but that's dope that it does for you guys. So.
It's and I think it's also interesting too, because I think his career was you know, like, you think about a Zack Snyder, like someone who makes a couple movies everyone loves and then makes like 5 giant movies in a row, which fucking nobody likes and do shitty. And then he still gets like these fucking mega $1 million deals with Netflix. And like, what's the difference between Zack and M? And you know, M the sort of, I don't know who started the whole Shamalama Ding Dong thing, but they should be put in the Haug. They deserve to be shot into space. Yeah, I don't know. I've always felt that too a little bit, where M clearly like made like a lot of really good stuff. Then he made like a couple things people didn't like, and then suddenly it was like he has to self-finance his movies. Like, what the fuck?
I think part of the reason he has to self-finance, though, is just because like the types of movies he makes are not the studio. Where like Zack Snyder is making Man of Steel, and so I think that's part of it. One thing I was thinking about is he writes roles for like. He allows his characters to be middle-aged. Josh Hartnett is a middle-aged guy in his 40s, who has a family. And he's not like some man-child or anything. You don't see a lot of those roles. So I think that's part of it.
It's a very girl dad-coded movie.
Definitely.
Im has 3 daughters. We'll get to one of them in a minute. Josh apparently has $3, which was something they bonded over when he was getting cast, and and that's like one of the that's like the things about the movie is I genuinely, it would be interesting to talk to Im about which serial killers influenced this, because I was thinking a lot about Dennis Rader while rewatching it, and how like, because there's a lot of these serial killers who have, like Ed Gein isn't a serial killer, but he's known kind of in that world, who like doesn't have, like, his social life is fucking garbage. You know what I mean? But then you have like a Dennis Rader BTK where fucking like nobody, like he had it so separated, it had like so distinct. That it was truly the guy where it was like, oh really, this guy. And they do some emotionally interesting things with his character in this, where he really does care about his family, especially his kids, and especially his daughter. And it's honestly like, it feels like his daughter, like his relationship with his daughter is almost his biggest motivation in the entire film. Like he cares more about that than not getting caught.
I mean, there are a couple of times it feels like he probably could have gotten away, but he would have had to ditch his kid.
Yeah.
I think a big motivation for M. Night writing this movie was just, it was about like how the work-life balance, which I imagine was difficult for him to maintain as the director of major motion pictures, especially when you're financing your own shit. I'm sure there were plenty of times when he wanted to be there for his kids, but he just couldn't because of work. And that's essentially what this story is a guy whose work life, who thought he had nailed the work life, home life balance, but unfortunately could not.
Did not. And
he had a good streak, though, it seemed.
I mean,
he had a setup.
You know who messed it up for him? I don't want to give spoilers.
Yes, we can get it out in a second. Before we get to that, there's a couple of big things. Sure. One, Josh Hartnett, what a fucking movie star! Like,
yeah, man.
Like, I mean, it is his and the DP's movie. I feel like in a lot of ways, like it is the whole movie is just a dance between. I need to look up this guy's name because he's Luca Guadagnino's DP from his last handful of films, sense. And he actually Im reached out to him after Call Me by Your Name or whatever, and was like, hey, I really want you to fucking make this movie, like come shoot That's Trap. Cool. And I mean, you can tell, I think in a lot of ways, like there's a visual richness to some of the, especially the way some of the concert stuff that reminded me a lot of some of the way certain scenes in like Challengers looked from earlier this year.
Well, especially because it's a very limited set piece. Even though you have a size of arena, it's not like there's that much varying difference between corner to corner in those places, you know. And like you said, I mean, some of those tracking shots are really unique. So I now totally see the Challenger, like where you can get that. He likes to run around and really get that interesting shot, which is cool.
Yeah, I was curious how they were going to do this because, like, it wasn't exactly like the arena was a character, you know, of the film. It really wasn't. But it was just always very, I thought the camera was very character-based.
Yeah.
And we were very much in Josh Hartnett's head the entire time. And yeah, his performance was, you know, like if he wasn't already a movie star, like a Star is Born type of performance, which in a way it kind of was, because I've never seen this. Like I said, it was easily the best performance I've ever seen him in.
I think so.
I don't want to talk too much shit. I don't think that's saying a lot, but I think that speaks more of some of the movies he's been in than him and everything. I heard he was really good in the show Penny Dreadful. I have not seen it. I liked him in Oppenheimer last year. So, like, I never doubted his skills, but I've never seen him. I don't think he's got the chance to flex the way he got to flex in this movie.
We're clearly in the heart and renaissance, and I do think he's one of these actors, and I'm trying. I think like Keanu is maybe a decent example too, but maybe not even quite to the same degree. Where someone who was kind of a hunk and heartthrob when they were younger, and who now with experience in their middle aged, in a lot of ways their acting experience has kind of like came up to meet their natural charisma, and they're able to like utilize it in a way that they've never really been able to. And because I kind of agree, like I think this and his performance in Oppenheimer are my two favorite performances of his I've seen. Like he seems like one of those actors who I really want, like I'm so glad he's doing more stuff. I'd love to see him in more things. He just fucking holds this movie down.
Beyond. Yeah. If you would cast it any different, I mean, especially because this narratively, it's not the most complex thing in the world, and it's a film of happenstance. And if it wasn't for Josh Hartnett, that definitely wouldn't have felt like it got as well as it did. And definitely him.
I want to thank M for the shirtless scene at the end where he just takes off his shirt. Thanks, M. He's still Josh, still looking good.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, everybody.
I also want to talk about the singer. So the in universe, it's Lady Raven. It's the singer Salika, who wrote all the songs also for the movie. Salika M. Night Shyamalan, who is one of M's daughters, and apparently a large genesis of the film is he was like, I wanted to make a concert movie for my daughter, and making this movie the world's most adorable nepotism. But I'm totally cool with it, and honestly, she sells it. Like the songs are solid. Like I'm not a pop guy, so like in my head they all sounded like these could be pop songs. Sure,
I actually thought that's exactly how I would describe them. Yeah, they could be pop songs. I didn't think they were like next level.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think they would have these songs would have brought her the fame that the movie suggested she had. She seemed like she would be opening for a couple of, but like, no, as far as like, to like sell, this is a pop star, perfect.
Yeah.
And the stage show was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I bought all that, definitely.
I wanted to shout out before we get into spoilers for a second.
Because there's some stuff I want to talk about.
A couple of pre-spoilers moments that I really liked. I love the moment when the stage opens up underneath, and he's like to his daughter is like, let's go down there and see.
Let's just scoot down.
And that's like the beginning of the daughter being like, "Are you okay, Dad?"
Yeah.
like what's wrong with you? Also, another really funny moment is when the guy, the worker, hands him the box cutter, and we just get that close up of Josh Hartnett, like looking at it, like, all right. There's a great line about jewelry towards the end, which is a really dark line where the mom, Josh Hartnett's wife, talks about how he always comes home with some new piece of jewelry that he's found he got a good deal on, and the implication there.
Yes.
And then always puts a smile on my face when I see him pop up in his own movies, and he plays his daughter's uncle in this. And yeah,
I love M. Night's cameo as well, because it feels like the third layer to the father-daughter thing, where he's just like, wait, you really love your daughter? yeah. Like, you friggin' good dad.
Also, and this is slightly spoiler, when Josh is talking to M. Night's character, he's trying to get them backstage. He's trying to get his daughter selected to go on stage to meet the pop star. And he just looks at him, and he delivers the line, she just survived leukemia. And funniest line of the year, like the entire
season. Yeah. That's a big part of Paul is in the chat right now talking about how director cameos are cringe, and I kind of agree, but you know what, you self-finance your movies, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like you get so many passes, I think, like very genuinely, and I will also say, compared to certain directors, I think M is actually kind of a decent actor, like for these little bit parts. Like he's not
he's never distracted.
Yeah. And I don't know, he's such a cutie pie. Like I just love him so much, so I just get excited. You know, it's like when people talk shit about the Stan Lee cameos or something. It's like I kind of get it, but I don't know. I just love seeing this guy's mug show up on my screen. And
I always forget that, like, he does that, so whenever he shows up, like, oh, there he is.
my favorite, and this is spoilers for 3 different movies, is the fact that in Unbreakable 20 years ago, his cameo is like a criminal that David Dunn, Bruce Willis's character, stops, and then 20 years later in Split, he plays a security guy for the building that the psychiatrist is in. And then in Glass, the crossover movie, we find out that those are the same character, that he reprises the role, and we find out that the security guy used to be a criminal, and then David Dunn set him on the right path, and now he's a security man. And to me, that's the best part of Glass. That's my favorite moment in Glass, honestly. A movie I liked more than...
I was going to say, that doesn't speak well of Glass.
Yeah, I like that movie more than other people did, but it is the weakest of his post big blockbusters run, I would say, by a pretty decent margin, because I think everything else has been like pretty good, actually. A lot of fun, at the very least, and Glass has a lot of starts and stops. And the one thing I was going to say about what you were saying about Josh Hartnett is I think that, like, he's so well cast in this. They've weaponized the fact that he is this previous heartthrob. I'll bring up Death Proof again, but it's a lot of what kind of works for Kurt Russell in that movie. Which is that we have so much goodwill to this person, and you then kind of buy it when he's able to so easily lie and so easily manipulate and charm people. You kind of get it. You kind of go like, yeah, like if anybody was like, this is his superpower to a better, to some extent.
I really like that they showed that he had a victim, and because, like, it reminded you of just how awful of a person he truly was, because honestly throughout the movie I wanted him to get away. Like, I was on his side, and I don't think, like, we all supposed to be. I don't think, like, we're like, I hope he gets caught, I hate this guy. So yeah, I think it was good that they showed, like, no, it isn't just like serial killer funny, like there are people are getting hurt. But you're right. We liked him very much, to the point of, like, which actually brings me. Are we in spoiler territory now? Because I would like to talk about, like,
spoilers.
The third act is where things get wild, because, like, he does eventually leave the stadium, the arena, which is I wasn't sure if that was going to happen, and I thought it was going to be the end, and there is, like, quite a bit to go.
Yeah, they leave the stadium about 2/3 the way through the movie, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say that last third, I was like, I have genuinely no idea what is going to happen in this movie, because it, like, the power dynamic keeps shifting.
I think what's interesting is the first 2/3 are built around the movie is constantly a two-hander, but the second person keeps switching. And the first 2/3, it's his daughter. It's this relationship with his daughter, and he has some scenes with other people, but it largely revolves him revolving around his daughter trying to get out. And then for a lot of the rest of the movie, it becomes about him. They get backstage, and he realizes the only way to get out of this is to basically tell the singer, again, we have the spoilers tags up, that, hey, I'm the guy you're looking for. You got to help me get out of here, or I'm gonna kill somebody. And then a lot of the rest of the movie kind of becomes her in the co-seat, where it's kind of revolving around like getting her. And then at the very end, it becomes him and his wife. And I think that's what's interesting, is the movie eventually circles all the way back around to that initial question. I actually think it is like interesting, like on a Rube Goldbergian sort of like structural way, the fact that like that initial question of like, okay, well, how do they know that he's there? And that becomes the whole thing. And it also goes into the work-life balance stuff, where the wife, played by Allison Pill, which is fucked up, that she's playing wives. She was just Kim Pine like 10 years ago. Calm down time. But
also speaks to Hollywood, though.
Yeah, that too. And we find out that she like thought something was wrong with him, and she wasn't sure, so she like planted like a little bit of evidence, so that way if he wasn't the killer, then nothing would happen to him. But if he was, it would point the cops in his direction. And he has a nice line towards the end where he talks about how the trap was actually set here at home and not at the stadium. That it was sort of part of this bigger social trap set by his wife, essentially.
I really liked that scene. I thought it came a little too late in the movie. Like by that time, I was like, okay, the movie's over, M. Night. Like the concept of the movie ended 20 minutes ago, and we're still here. And I like, because it was like, and this is quite spoiler for everyone. Like there was like the scene with them, like with the pop star and the family, and then the scene in the limo, and now the scene. And I actually thought it was going to end when he gets out and she like gets in the limo, and then you find out he's driving the limo. I thought it was gonna be like a spooky ending where he like drives off with her, and she was gonna be like his next victim.
I kind of agree. Probably if like the best version of this movie probably doesn't have him leaving the house and coming back to it. The best version of this movie has the pop star escaping and then him not leaving the house and then having the big scene with the wife. You know what I mean? Where but I still, I definitely I like this movie a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's a hoot. A certified hoot.
It also made me want to see a like CBS type procedural called Swifties Crime Stoppers.
The live stream.
Yeah, because like you could just have Taylor could be like essentially Charlie from Charlie's Angels, and start every episode like, okay, Swifties, looks like we've got blah 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 blah. Go get them, and then like each week is just different Swifties solving cases across the globe. Like.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd watch it.
There's a funny, I mean, that moment at the end is funny because it is like, well, why doesn't she just call the police? But at the same time, I do kind of get it, because they probably, honestly, Swifties would be better at finding someone than the police, because the police are fucking terrible. So
yeah, no, absolutely. That's not even without question.
Trap says ACAB.
subtly. He's not gonna like throw it out there, but yeah, we hear.
I mean, I thought of that in a lot of ways. You're like, these cops are fucking dumb. Like in that movie, you're just watching going like, there's no plan these cops got. They just line up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that's kind of the joy of it.
Sure.
I love some of those scenes. Like, I love the scene where he goes back and he's pretending to be the employee, and he just guesses that there's sugar underneath, and he's just like, right, and it's just like I don't know. I love that shit, because I think it's also like, I've seen a lot of people being like, was this movie supposed to be funny? And it's like, if you don't think that this movie was supposed to be like pretty, like really funny, like it's supposed to be tense also, but it is also supposed to be a very funny movie. And I think if you don't see that, did you hit your head? Like, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, that's the whole premise of it. It's obviously, like I say happenstance, but it's not like I'm saying that in jest. I mean, like, it's what we're doing, it knows what it wants to do from the very beginning. And I think
it's silly. It knows it's silly, and it doesn't necessarily like just to say it knows it's silly doesn't mean it doesn't take itself seriously.
Yeah,
right.
Because it does. I think it's, like, yeah, there could be an awful version of this movie, but like it takes itself seriously, but it understands what it's doing is very silly.
It takes itself the right amount of seriously, and understands when to have its tongue in its cheek and when to every once in a while, because like they'll have these like really silly moments, and then it'll cut to Josh Hartnett, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna kill myself, but you first, and you're like, whoa, like hold on.
Well, even juxtaposed with that whole like the guy who's got trapped. I mean, that's like an actual like horror sequence. You're like, oh shit, okay.
One of his distractions with the young girl and the friar, like that's legitimately awful.
Yeah.
Like, I used to work as a caterer, and we would have like a fryer, and like that was a big fear of mine. So like, I'm just getting slightly burned. Maybe not that exactly, but just like you get any of it, because like that shit hurts. So yeah, that was like it's not without its stakes.
Yeah, no, and I'll also say this. I think I really miss the single PG-13 F word. I think he's one of the kings of it. I think there's a really good one in this movie that's like done at that moment of like tension where it makes it like, oh fuck. And I kind of miss it. I got to be honest. Like I love the last couple Avengers movies, but I could have used with 50 less S words in those movies and maybe 2 more F words in those movies. And there's an art to it that I think we've lost a little bit, and I think M is one of our only major directors I think keeping that art alive.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
He is a genius. Let's move on to our. Whoa! I clicked the wrong thing. Let's move on to our last movie we're talking about tonight. My favorite movie we're talking about tonight. I had Hunter in our opening. I'm labeled here as Dan's slut. This is Dan Stevens. I got some. We got some posters over when we saw them at the Vista. Hopefully I'm sure my.
Nice, Dan.
Yeah.
Just Dan.
This one, well, fucking hell, man. I hate this. Hold on, let me just
hold
it
in front of your body.
Make sure I don't have any of my like giant dildos behind me. Hold on, I'm gonna turn off my no effects for a second. Yeah, we got this one. This is the lady, the lady in the trench coat. But then also, I'm gonna frame this and put this right above my bed. Are those
the two they had? Like those two different ones they had?
They had a third one. They didn't have any with Hunter because I would have gotten that one. Yeah,
that's what I was asking. Yeah,
they had a third one with the girl when she's like blow drying her hair.
Oh yeah.
I'll summarize this one because this is my favorite, and this is like this movie was just extremely my shit. You know what I mean? It's like every once in a while I feel like a movie gets made, it's like it comes up and it's like knock knock knock, we made this one for you, Connor, and I go thanks, and that was and right now that this year this is that one. It's not my favorite of the year, but it's pretty close, I gotta be honest. My other two who also star Euphoria castmates, but Cuckoo is the story of the same one actually. I see. Yeah, Michi. Cuckoo is the story of a family. It's Hunter Schafer playing Gretchen, her dad, her dad's wife, and her half sister, and they move to this place in the German Alps in order for them to make a resort up there, and some spooky stuff starts happening, and I won't get into it. I think it's got a great trailer. Definitely just check out the trailer, and it does a good job of kind of setting it up. I don't know. I really loved this one. I love Hunter and Dan. I love the flute playing. We got here. I think it's really funny, really tense, really sweet. I'll say my two big, like, very pro arguments, sort of talking about some of the. I mean, I think a lot of the reactions have been largely positive to this. I get why people won't like the plotting, but I feel like I can always tell the difference between someone who knows what's going on and just isn't telling us everything for whatever reason, and someone who is just like bullshitting. And for me on a rewatch, I felt like, oh, I got it more, like it clicked into my head, the processes of what was going on. And I also like that the themes in this are a little quieter. Like, I like a lot of the modern A24 elevated horror stuff. I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, well, back in, the blah, 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 that wasn't political. Like people drooling from their mouths.
Movies were never political until like 3 years ago.
That shit's fucking stupid, but I do think that a lot of the modern horror stuff like really like chair slams you over the head sometimes with their themes, and I appreciate that. I think this movie takes a subtler approach because I think it's pretty clearly about like abusive families. I saw some interesting reads of the movie about that, and specifically using the metaphor of the cuckoo bird, both in terms of the which, if people don't know, is a bird that in order to raise its own has to implant like eggs in somebody else's nest. Use it to both explore like what an abusive family looks like, but also this sort of the mechanics of what's going on. I really like this movie a lot. Casey,
I liked it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Casey, have you not seen this one?
No, I have. I was
Okay,
muted.
Cool. I was wondering. I was the one I wasn't sure of. If you hadn't seen this one, go ahead, Scott. Though, sorry to cut you off.
No, whatever. I liked it. I didn't love it. I actually saw it again yesterday. I went back to the Vista, check it out again, because I couldn't. The first time I saw it, I liked it, but I thought it was less than some of its parts, but it was still stuck in my head, like lots of things, and I want to see it again. Just see it all now that it was happening, and I kind of stand by that. Where like I can't necessarily state anything that I didn't like about it. I just, for me, like I'm glad it was extremely as shit. Like for me, it just wasn't quite, and like I'd recommend it. I think people should see it more because I want to hear what they think about it. But like watching it, I was like, I dug it, and I liked everything, especially Hunter and Dan Stevens. Just. As a whole, it just didn't land for me.
Yeah, I'm showing this to Celeste. Every year I get to show her a couple of horror movies in October because she's not as into them. And to be fair, there's nothing in this that's like wretched in a way that's gonna like be awful.
A lot of jump scares,
but nothing like horribly gruesome or anything. And so, but I'm curious to see what she thinks.
I think it was another great aesthetically great film. I loved Hunter. Dan Stevens was fantastic. Glad you had a good time with it.
Yeah, it didn't really hit for me. I'm interested in seeing it again because you, Connor, said that it makes more sense.
I've only done it once as well.
Yeah, because that's definitely where I was like I think we hit the midpoint, and I was like, oh, all right, I think I'm there. And then by the time I hit the third act, I kind of like gave up on understanding because so much was happening.
Yeah. I had the same reaction when I saw it the first time, and I will say, seeing it the second time, understanding what's happening doesn't necessarily like.
Yeah,
it's not because it's not plot based. And I think that's part of what Connor likes about it.
Yes.
So like, so now when I watch it, going like, oh, now I understand what's going on. Was the experience different for me? And I will say, honestly, not that much.
Sure.
That's why I enjoyed seeing it the second time, though, because like I said, it did solidify. It was like, oh, I feel exactly the same way as I felt the first time.
You know what I mean? Where it's like you can tell the difference between a director, like
definitely.
Like you can. It feels like either because I think seen it 2 times. There are still things that I don't really know exactly the mechanics of, but it feels like there's probably a longer version of this, like in some notebook somewhere where he's figured it out.
Yeah.
But like I gotta be like, as someone who like one of my least favorite personal traits as a writer is when I'm writing something and I have to like justify in the writing why anything happens, where I'm like, okay, well, this person used that elevator, I need to have a line of dialogue about why they used that elevator instead of that elevator. And it's like, you don't actually like, nobody fucking give like it doesn't actually really matter. And I like that this movie, to me, kind of stripped almost all of that away. Like there's very little exposition, there's very little scenes where the movie is like trying to like catch you up to where it is.
Where like the first time I watched that, I was like, I don't know what's going on. And by the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, I don't need to know what's going on. Like I know enough. So I would say like just that was my experience. So if you're wondering what it would be like seeing the second time.
Sure. I mean, I think that's where I found it weakest. Like I liked like when the women throw up in the store and the hand when Hunter's riding her bike. Like all these things that don't like I did like being disoriented in that way.
I want to talk about that moment real quick. That's one of my favorite. I love the use of shadows in movies, and it's in the trailer. I think it's even more effective in the film also because it's like more extended. It's shot really well. I really need to check out Tillman's previous film, Luz, I think is what it's called.
It's really scary. Like when I saw it in the trailer, I was like, oh no. And in the movie, I was really emotionally affected by it.
I'll also say this. I also say, like, again, talking about this being like a movie made for me, one of my favorite tropes in horror movies is when characters, not just the main character, but when all the characters by the end of the movie just like have the shit beat out of them and are just like limping around and like barely able to function. And this movie delivers on that. Like the main couple characters by the end of the movie are all very injured, limping around, bleeding, like sloppily doing the action and stuff. And I think that third act is a lot of fun. That library scene where Hunter is hiding from the lady in the jacket and like using the earbuds. We won't go into exactly how she's using them, but you know, like the movie's like sets you up just enough to like understand the mechanics of like like what needs to happen, how can she like help avoid what's going on, and it's just a good like snowball of everything. I like it a lot. It's very much so my shit. But I get it. I don't not get it. It's not like sometimes I watch a movie and I'm like, why don't people like this? You know, it's like when somebody says they like hate like Raiders of the Lost Ark or RoboCop or something. I'm like, what the fuck? But like really? But I get it with this one. Like and in fact, I think a lot of the things that I like about it are probably some of the things that alienate people from it in terms of its storytelling. But I just like that stuff. And it's got Dan Stevens playing a flute and several moments that are very funny. It's really funny. Like I think that
it is.
It's really funny.
That's shout out to Dan Stevens, by the way.
Yeah,
he's having a great year.
Okay,
and a great run in general.
Yeah, he's so funny, weirdly sweet. Like I was not expecting it to be as sweet as it was. With it's like there's like a sister relationship that's kind of becomes core to the movie, and that stuff was like way more emotional than I thought it was going to be going into it. But yeah, Dan is just that might be the best moment in the movie is this moment right here where Hunter Schafer, do you see a cut down version of this in the trailer? But Hunter Schafer asks him why he's there, and then he like plays his flute for a moment, and then he's like, because your family belongs here. And Hunter Schafer's like, that's a fucking weird way to put it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
hilarious.
Before we go to the game, I wanted to open it up to if anyone has any other movies they want to talk about. I want to talk about briefly, not really a horror movie, Slither Reunion Skincare, which I just saw yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Which is a sort of thriller comedy. It reminded me a lot of Fargo in a lot of ways, but set in LA. It's not groundbreaking or anything. Elizabeth Banks is very good. Nathan Fillion's a lot of fun in his couple scenes. But it's just it's about this woman who she's like a skincare person in Hollywood, and she's launching her own skincare line, and her whole, like, all of her business stuff is like right on the line, where if it doesn't go well, everything's gonna fucking nosedive and just fall apart. And as this is going on, another skincare person who seems to be getting more press than her opens across like the like strip mall from her or whatever, and two, more importantly, her stuff gets hacked and she's getting harassed. Like somebody sends out an email from her phone being like, "I'm so horny, somebody please come fuck me," and somebody posts like Craigslist ads being like, come to my work rape fantasy, like come in and barge in and do all this stuff. And she pretty clearly, like, early on starts thinking it's that guy who owns that other shop, and we, because we're smart and not the dumb Fargo characters of this movie, are like, I don't think that's what's going on. But then we see more and more them building again, like Fargo, like, like this is not good. Like the directions. It's like a Fargo set in LA that really focuses in on the William H. Macy character, where we know, like, this ain't good. Don't do this, sister. Stop. Like, what you're doing is bad.
Heck yeah.
But yeah. Anybody else got any summer screams they want to shout out?
Did anything else come out? Not that I need a list, just like I really don't remember anything else. I forgot skincare was coming out so soon.
Yeah.
The only other like summer scary movie I didn't even see was that Abigail movie, but I think you guys talked, like, that was earlier in the summer.
That was early, yeah.
Oh,
Abigail.
I didn't see that one.
I think we covered everything else.
There's a scary movie that we're going to get to next week that I need to talk about.
Well, before we get to that, it's time to play Connor's Wicked Games, sponsored by Chris Isaac. Every week, like Jigsaw, I like to play a little game. This week... Oh, that was the wrong thing I clicked. Hopefully that doesn't turn out weird. But it's Scream Queens Mix and Match. In honor of our lovely leading ladies we've had today, out of the six movies we talked about, 5 of them got leading ladies. Today I'm going to give you the names of 3 Scream Queen characters and also the names of 3 movies. You have to match the queens to the movies, 1 point for each correct match, so up to 3 points. However, there's a trap. In honor of our one leading lad, some of these have tricks. In those cases, one of the 3 names is actually a Scream King character, and it does not match with the movies. So 2 of the queens will match with 2 of the movies, but the king won't match with the remaining movie. In those cases, you get 1 point for identifying the king, that it's a king. You get 2 points additionally for naming the movie the king is from, and you get 3 points additionally if you can name the queen from the leftover movie that is, like, unmatched. Casey, you have a question?
Because I like to be embarrassing. If I don't win this next episode, I'm eating a shoe.
Okay.
I mean it. I will fulfill.
And in fact, I've got a little bit of a visual aid in the chat. Can you guys see that link I posted in the chat? All right. So first round, usually I like to make it a little easy, but I think I made this first round a little difficult this time. So we've got our three queens, Maxine, Carrie, and Rosemary from the movies Maxine, Carrie, and Rosemary's Baby. We will Casey, you can go first.
So Rosemary's in Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
And Carrie's in Carrie.
Yeah.
Maxine is from the movie MaXXXine.
Interesting choices. Brian, what do you think?
Can you just repeat it real quick? Sorry, I'm still setting shit up. I'm fucking, look, I'm trying to play proper.
Queens Maxine, Carrie, and Rosemary from the movie is Maxine, Carrie, and Rosemary's Baby. Which queens go to which movies?
I would say Rosemary's Baby. Which film am I supposed to pick?
You're
matching.
You're matching the three queens to the three movies.
Okay, Maxine. What am I missing on this? Rosemary's Baby.
And then you're saying Carrie is in Carrie?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Scott, what do you want to say?
I'm going to go with having not seen several of these movies, I'm going to have to go with the majority consensus and say that Maxine is in Maxine, Carrie is in Carrie, and Rosemary is in Rosemary's Baby.
You're such a cheater.
Well, somehow that's 3 points for all of you. I thought that would have stumped you all, but
no, honestly, I was looking at it and I was like, going, "Am I really fucking up this game already?"
I was being sarcastic.
That would have been so funny.
Yeah, it would have been ridiculous.
All right,
okay.
Round two. We'll start with you, Brian. The three queens. We've got Sydney, Ashley, and Lori from the movies Halloween, Scream, and Friday the 13th.
Sydney, Scream, Ashley, Friday the 13th, Lori, Halloween.
Scott?
Did you post them?
What was that?
Did you like oh, can I hear them again? Oh, there you go. Here we go. Now I can see them.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Yeah. So Sydney is for Scream, Lori is Halloween, and Ashley is Friday the 13th.
Casey?
I might be embarrassing myself here. Okay, so Sydney's from Scream, Lori's from Halloween, but I want to say you're talking about Ashley from Evil Dead, and I don't know the Scream Queen in Friday the 13th.
So that's 2 points for Brian and Scott, and 5 points for Casey, because indeed, that is Ashley from the Evil Dead movies. It's Alice in Friday the 13th. So that was the first of our King appearances.
The King.
Scott, it might take a minute to appear on your end, but
I see it. I got now. Yeah, no.
Cool. We've got Christy, Nancy, and Ellen from Alien, Hellraiser, and A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay. Ellen is Alien, Nancy is A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Christy is Hellraiser.
Brian? Or Scott, or Casey technically next, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll say Ellen and Alien, Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street, and Christy from Hellraiser.
Brian, are you?
Yeah, I'm on the same with that.
Yep, that is indeed 3 points for everyone. Next up, we'll start this one with you, Casey. We've got our queens, Lorraine, Wendy, and Amelia from The Shining, The Babadook, and The Conjuring.
Oh. So Lorraine is in The Conjuring. And we got a 50-50 chance, baby. Wendy's in The Shining, and Amelia's from The Babadook.
Scott or Brian?
Some of the Babadook's bothering me, but I'm gonna stick with it. Same with Casey.
Scott?
Oof. Wendy is definitely The Shining. Lorraine Conjuring. No, I'm going to say Amelia Conjuring, Lorraine Babadook.
Well, that's 1 point for Scott and 3 points for the others. It is indeed Wendy in The Shining, Lorraine Warren, the totally legit psychic, not a fraud at all, from The Conjuring, not a fraudulent person in any way. Next up, round 5. This is the Micah Monroe round. Brian, we've got Lee, Jay, and Anna from the movies Longlegs, It Follows, and The Guest.
I'm gonna say, oh man, it's gonna bother me if I miss this up. But all right. So Lee is Longlegs, Anna is It Follows, and Jay is the Guest.
Scott?
I think Jay is actually It Follows, and Lee is The Guest. No, Lee is Longlegs, and then Anna is The Guest.
Casey?
Okay, so Lee is Longlegs, and I'm gonna say Jay is It Follows, and Anna is The Guest.
Congratulations, Brian. You're wrong. Well, you're 1/3 right. You're right about Lee, but the other two.
No, I thought about it as soon as Scott was saying it too.
Scott and Casey were correct. Next up, this is kind of a. I have a thing. There's a theme to this round too, but I'll explain it afterwards. We'll start with you, Scott. We've got Eben, Adelaide, and Cecilia from Immaculate, Us, and Nope.
Can I see the name? Let's see.
Eben, Adelaide, and Cecilia from Immaculate, Us, and Nope.
There you go. Cecilia, Nope. Us, and Eben, Immaculate.
You said Adelaide, Us, and Eben, Immaculate. Cool. Casey?
Cecilia's in Immaculate. I want to say Adelaide is in Us, and I don't think Eben's a queen, but I don't know who that is.
Well, you get 1 point for identifying it as a king, whether or not you know the movie or the actual queen name.
Oh. Okay, then I think Eben's a king. Yeah, and I don't remember her name in Nope.
You don't remember her name in Nope, and you don't remember you don't know where Eben's from, in what you're claiming. Okay. Brian?
I'm actually exact answer is Casey.
Well, Casey and Brian, you guys are correct. Adelaide is in Us. Cecilia is in Immaculate. It is Emerald in Nope. And it is King Eben from 30 Days a Night. The theme of this round is I was trying to represent all the other movies we were talking about, because I had MaXXXine in the first question. We had the Micah Monroe round. And so this was, you had Lapita in Us, which connects to Nope because of Jordan Peele, but Nope also connects to Cuckoo because of the Euphoria co-star, as does Immaculate, and then King Eben in 30 Days a Night, that's Josh Hartnett. So that's what was going on there. Casey, Kristen, Helen, and Stevie in The Fog, The Strangers, and Candyman.
So Helen's in Candyman. I want to say I'm gonna say Kirsten's in The Strangers, and we'll go with whatever the third name is in The Fog.
Scott.
Stevie, yeah, that's right. Okay.
Helen and Candyman, Kristen in The Fog, and Stevie in The Strangers.
Brian.
Helen for Candyman, Stevie for The Fog, and Kristen for The Strangers.
Well, you're all right about Helen from Candyman, but it is Casey and Brian who are right up with the other two. It is Stevie that is Adrienne Barbeau in The Fog.
I think about like the way that the name was called out in the film.
Fog.
Yeah.
I was thinking of The Mist.
Oh shit, dude! No, that's
wow.
No.
I was like, I've never seen that movie.
Different form of air vapor.
Yeah.
Gotta keep track of that.
Brian, how about Jamie, Alex, and Max from The Final Girls, Totally Killer, and Freaky?
Right. Right.
I mean, I'm guessing around here. Jamie, Freaky, Alex, Totally Killer, and Max, The Final Girls.
Scott?
Ooh. I'm going to say Max for Totally Killer. Actually, I'm just thinking because, like, I remember the thing about Totally Killer. They had a really great joke where, like, yeah, I was thinking Max, Totally Killer. Alex for Freaky and Jamie for Final Girls.
Casey.
I think I got too hype actually, but it's Jamie and Totally Killer, Alex and Freaky, and Max in The Final Girls.
So it is Jamie and Totally Killer and Max and the Final Girls. It is Millie and Freaky, and it is King Alex, portrayed by Devon Sawa in Final Destination. And so throwing a little curveball there. Scott, Derry, Sally, and Jess in Black Christmas, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Hills Have Eyes.
Sally for Black Christmas, Jess for The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Derry for The Hills Have Eyes.
Casey.
Oh my god. Okay. Wait, sorry. Can you say them all again?
Derry, Sally, and Jess from Black Christmas, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Hills Have Eyes.
Okay, I'm gonna say, oh jeez, I'm gonna say Jess for Black Christmas, and I don't stand by this, by the way. Jess for Black Christmas, Sally for Texas Chainsaw, and then I guess Derry for The Hills Have Eyes.
Brian?
Yeah, Derry for Hills Have Eyes, Sally for Texas Chainsaw, and Jess Black Christmas.
Sally is in Texas Chainsaw, Jess in Black Christmas, but it's Brenda in The Hills Have Eyes, and it's...
Oh, yeah, of course, dude, of course.
King Derry, played by Justin Long in Jeepers Creepers.
Jeez.
Which you don't see.
Yeah. I mean, he is a genuine Scream King, but the filmmaker's son of a bitch.
Yeah.
To put it mildly. Casey. We've got Michi, Raiko, and Rika from Ring, Pulse, and Ju-on, The Grudge. This is my prank round. This is the penultimate one. This is the J horror round.
Wow. Okay.
I thought Josh was going to be on here, and I know he loves Pulse. I think he. I know, like, and I thought Daniel maybe too. So to be honest, sometimes I write these questions thinking that certain people are going to be here.
I'm gonna say Riki, right? I've never seen these movies.
Well, it's Raiko and Rika.
Raiko and Rika. Okay,
And
I'm
Michi.
gonna say Rika's in Pulse. And what did you say? Who are these?
Raiko and Michi.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In Ring and the Grudge.
I'm gonna say Raiko's in The Grudge, and I'm gonna say that Michi's not a queen.
So that was you were saying Rika and Pulse, Raiko and the Grudge, and Michi's a king. All right, Brian.
Rico for the Ring, Rika for Pulse, Miki for the Grudge.
Scott.
Rico for the Ring and Michi for Pulse.
Well, Scott got it perfect. That is indeed Michi and Pulse, Raiko and Ring, and Rika and Ju-on the Grudge.
Oh my god!
I just
the master of
not
J
racist.
horror.
I don't watch them because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that they're going to be
He's throwing a basketball behind my head and landing into the hoop.
incredible, absolutely incredible.
And one last round. I'll go ahead and say that I think the places have already been locked, but we're gonna play it anyways because this last round we had our Micah Monroe round. This is the Barbara Crampton round. Brian, Catherine, Susan, and Megan from Reanimator, From Beyond, and Castle Freak. Her 3 Stuart Gordon, Jeffrey Combs collabs.
Yeah, this is like embarrassing because I just don't. I know the film's just not the names super well. Susan for Reanimator, Megan from Beyond, and Catherine from Castle Freak.
Scott.
I think Susan from Reanimator, Catherine from Beyond, and Megan from Castle Freak.
Casey.
I think what Scott said sounded right. I want to copy Scott's answers.
Well, it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, Catherine from Beyond, Susan and Castle Freak, and Megan and Reanimator. But Scott, you've gotten the bronze. Brian, the silver. Casey, you got the gold.
No shooting for you.
It got scary. I'm sorry. That was scary.
You pulled it. You pulled it out. And I mean a victory, not something else. Let me switch back to the main scene, and we have a newish segment. Scott, is there a newish segment we need to do right now?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if that can be part of the.
We've got here, Scott. It's Scott's Comics Corner.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for Scott's Comic Corner, brought to you by Eric Clapton and Pfizer.
I was going to say, by the way, all the songs that are played here have problematic people who made them.
Hey,
yeah, we should cancel Marina.
Like, just literally everything, but other than Marina and me.
Well, yet at least.
Yeah, true.
All right, so some new stuff. The only DC title that I'm currently reading is Superman. Superman 17 just came out. DC is still on their Absolute Power storyline, which is that Amanda Waller has taken over and stripped all superheroes of their power, including Superman. So he's on a quest trying to get power back right now. It's fine, but it's also part of a much larger story that I'm not reading. So I will be happy when they get back to like the storyline they're telling, because I have been enjoying it. But back to the Marvel, I just caught up on Fantastic Four. This is the latest issue. The covers have all been by Alex Roth, and they've been amazing.
Yeah, incredible artist.
Just incredible covers this entire run. The run itself has been written by Ryan North, and I really like his take on the characters. I'd say the way I describe the comic is sort of a sitcom. It's a family sitcom with a sci-fi like edge to it and stuff. And that doesn't mean that the stakes aren't real for them, but there's also just funny adventures where they get into like sci-fi mishaps and stuff. They're currently living in Arizona due to they had to put the Baxter building in a time warp for a year, including their children were in there. They're now back now. They're all living in Arizona in the Thing's Aunt Petunia's home cabin in Arizona. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I would recommend anyone picking it up. It just all the issues are like either self-contained or one of two, which I've also really enjoyed. There hasn't been like it's not like a serious like 8-issue arc or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely recommend that run.
Nice.
Another one that just started was Werewolf by Night from the Marvel Red Band. And I think it's funny, Red Band just means violent, more violent, because when they swear, it's still blurted. It's still censored. So it's funny. I'm reading more comics, and especially like the first issue of a new run, I generally don't remember what the storyline is. He's a werewolf. He's trying to like not lose his shit, but he will lose his shit. It's hard to tell if I'm going to enjoy the run. I'm actually not terribly familiar with the Werewolf by Night as a character. Yeah. I was first introduced to him by that Marvel one-shot that came out 2 years ago. So I don't know too much about the lore, so that's kind of why I picked it up. I enjoyed it, but like I said, I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of decompression that happens with a lot of modern comics where, like, it's even worse. It's like even worse than TV, where like you used to, like the first issue used to like be like its own little adventure, and now it's like the first third of the first act of a movie.
It wasn't quite that bad. It was more just like world building. These are the characters. This is their deal. Going forward, I'm sure we'll get a much better glimpse of it. Hey, speaking of old franchises doing new bits, we've got Predator versus Black Panther.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I liked it so far. What I'm most curious is because I don't read like Predator comic books. It really gets into like the lore of the Predator like civilization, and that which is something I'm not terribly familiar with. So I thought that was interesting. But they've come to Wakanda. They're able. I'd say their technology is about equal to Wakanda's, so they're able to like breach the fences pretty easily. And I mean, the first issue was a setup. They want vibranium naturally, it would be a good run. So I'm looking forward to that. The one I'm really looking forward to is next week is Aliens vs. Avengers by Jonathan Hickman. So
nice.
That's
sick.
And I know that they play older. It's like older, grittier, and I know it's non-canon, so I'm going to assume that all of them make it out alive. But now it's time for the X portion of the Comics Corner, because Marvel is still continuing X-Men's From the Ashes saga. The new ones that have come out since we talked last time are Uncanny X-Men, which is written by Gail Simone.
That's a great cover.
Yeah, really, really great cover. There's a variant. Let me grab that one real quick.
I'll while Scott's stepping away for a second, the comic I've been reading I was going to shout out is The Ultimate X-Men by Peach Momoko. Just look up Ultimate X-Men Peach Momoko. It's visually such a different book than most other American comics, and Scott can
kind of showed me that. It's pretty amazing.
He's a Japanese like manga artist, and it looks like a Japanese manga, but it's like a major American comic book. It's really cool.
Yeah. So Uncanny X-Men is the primary focus in this. The team appears to be Rogue and Wolverine, Nightcrawler,
and Jubes.
Well, Jubes was not in this issue.
Okay. Well, that's her hand.
I assume she... Yeah, that's clearly her hand, so I assume she'll show up eventually. But, right now it's just the three of them. Rogue is the leader, mostly by default. And, they haven't quite set up what the whole arc's going to be. It looks like they're going to have to help some kids. It's interesting because they are kind of splitting up with X-Men, like what the stories are. So while Cyclops is in Alaska and he's kind of setting up like the school and like the military aspect of the X-Men and they're going on missions, it appears that Rogue is going to be more about helping mutants.
Yeah.
And personally helping them. Whether they're coming in conflict, I'm not entirely sure.
It sounds like they're kind of continuing the read on Cyclops as him being the next Magneto in a lot of ways, which I think is a really interesting read on that character.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see where they go. The second issue of the X-Men run came out. I enjoyed it. I'm not highlighting it just because we're going more with the new issues. What's going on with Storm? She's joined the Avengers.
Oh yeah.
How like much the Avengers is going to have to deal with the From the Ashes storyline, but certainly the first two issues with her joining the team will be part of that. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue reading that just because she's on the team. But the big setup for this is eventually, I think in October, Storm is getting her own title.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be reading that, but I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with all the Avengers. This seems like it's going to be a part of one of two. There's a guy named Hyperin, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's coming to punch the world, which I think is funny. He's essentially like a comet. He's going to just punch the world, and Storm's going to have to stop him. So careful, world. Hyperin's coming to punch you. And the other new debut now is X Factor.
Nice.
And that series is starting. The basic concept for X Factor is it's somewhat similar to X-Force in that they're a government sanctioned team, except with this version of X Factor, they're not even government sanctioned, they're corporate sanctioned. It's this company called Click Clock, so whatever that stands for. And what's interesting is they're hiring the mutants not necessarily for their abilities, but for what makes them most publicly accessible and likable. And so the first mission they go on, not all the mutants make it back. Several die, and it's considered you would consider a failure, but it gets them a lot of good publicity. So I'm curious to see what kind of stories they tell with this team up. And Archangel is the leader, and he survives. So it seems like it's going to be his story.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what they do with that. So that's Marvel's X From the Ashes universe. And the final shout out I want to give, the issue of the week, my choice, personal choice, is from Image Comics. It's a new series that just began. The first issue came out last week, The Power Fantasy. I really liked it. It's an interesting concept. Essentially, there are 6 super beings on Earth and what it means to be a super being is you have an arsenal 6 times the nuclear destruction of the United States. And because these beings have this power, it's actually about them learning to coexist and not fight. And, just because they're not fighting doesn't necessarily mean they're good. One of them gets attacked. And so the agreement is like, okay, well, we'll determine exactly how many people you can kill, and we'll kill exactly that amount, but you can't kill anymore because that wouldn't be ethical. And he's attacked by, this is slightly spoiler, sorry everyone, he's attacked by the US government. So the people they kill are the president and everybody in his cabinet who had plans for this attack. where the hero of the series draws the line is like, okay, you can kill all of them, but you can't kill their family. That's not, they had nothing to do with this. So, just like I would say Werewolf by Night, it's very much more about setting up the world and these characters and the situation. I'm not sure what the full storyline is going to be, but it's a really, really great concept. I love the artwork. I enjoy what Image Comics does, so I am looking forward to reading more.
And Gillen's an interesting writer. Yeah, I really liked his. He created like the Kid Loki character in Young Avengers, so he's an interesting dude. We almost set up a good transition. But for anything else, I look at motherfucking into genocide and Palestine, Congo, Sudan, everywhere else. But I wanted to shout out if anyone's got anything else. Me and Scott just saw this weekend at the Arrow Theater a marathon of all 10 episodes of X-Men 97, which fucking rocked.
Holy shit, man! That was incredible.
It was awesome. Seeing it in a theater, getting people to like people just like, I don't know, there's so much about, like, I understand people like being at home, people like being alone, but so much about art is like reacting to it with other people, I think. And there was so much joy in watching that with all of this group of people, and you know, people just laughing at stuff like that. Fucking there's a bit, if people don't know X-Men 97, it's a continuation, I'm sure I shouted out previously, but it's a continuation of the 90s animated show. Jean Grey is pregnant at the beginning of the show, and there's a great moment that got a huge laugh from our audience where most of the other X-Men are off somewhere, and she's like alone at the mansion with Wolverine, and her water breaks, and she like walks up to Wolverine, and she's like, "Oh, he's coming," because they know it's a boy. Like he's coming, and Wolverine just like snicked. Who? Apocalypse? Like ready to fight, ready to fucking throw down, and she's like, "No, the baby." And Wolverine's like, "Oh." And you know, beyond that, and just like all the other moments, like Cyclops's speech, like when Cyclops gets mad in like the TV interview on the 5th episode, which is such a fucking good moment. All the great like action moments, like they use characters' powers in ways that I don't even think I've seen in the comics, really. I'm sure in the comics they've used them, but like using Cyclops using his beam as like a momentum tool, like to like move himself around and push himself in different areas is so cool. And just the way they've been able to forward like the queer themes of the show. There's like things have gotten so fucking exhausting in that world with how people react to it. Like one of my favorite moments is and it's a bad guy moment, but it's like such a perfect encapsulation of like the rhetoric of people who are like anti-queer these days, where this character, the Executioner, is trying to attack all these mutants, and he's like beating up Cyclops, and he's literally part of a mob of people invading a building when he says this, and he doesn't understand how stupid he is, and it gets at the heart of like the anti-queer movement, where he's like, "You know what I hate about you mutants? It's the whining. Normal people have it hard too. I just hate how much you whine. I almost hate the whining as much as I hate you." And it's like, bro, you've invaded a building. But it's like so perfect for what I think like the anti-queer movement is at these days, where it's like, you guys are a bunch of fucking losers and babies who are just pieces of shit. Such a good show.
And the animation, like, I appreciate it when I watch it at home, but seeing it on that giant screen was just next level.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really appreciate how beautiful this show was animated, with very much like it was like watching an anime. You know, like the way it was clearly influenced by that. And I actually watched that Avengers or Marvel Assembled, and they talked about like how they upped the animation, and a lot of that was through Japanimation company. And it was funny when Connor and I were driving to this event, prepared for like 10 episodes. We were both kind of thinking like, it's gonna be a long day.
Oh yeah, you picked me up at like 7:30 a.m. in the morning, and so
we also thought it was we also thought it was gonna be a little bit busier when we got there than it was. We were third in line, which hey, we got great seats.
You get a great seats, yeah.
Like we were both kind of like, they could have probably done like 6. There's other bad episodes, but you could have like. But by the time that thing was done, I could have watched 10 more.
Oh, for sure.
It flew by. It was well paced. We got free popcorn all day. It was a great day, and great show. I can't wait to see the next season. I hope when they do the second season, American Cinematheque does something like this again. I would absolutely go in a heartbeat. What a great day! Yeah. Connie, you said it best. One of the best days I've had in a theater, like just a theater experience.
Yeah, no, it was just awesome, and getting to those. Yeah. And just like getting to experience, like, I'm not, no spoilers, but like the end of the 5th episode, remember it? Yes. Like getting to experience some of those, like those really big emotional moments with like a crowd, because it wasn't like packed, but it was actually liked how it was like packed enough that we got a good reaction to everything, but it was like there was also enough space that you could kind of like, you could put your jacket in the seat next to you, but then like I was like the whole time I was sharing that I had a seat between me and this other guy, and we were like sharing it to put our stuff in the whole time. And that's kind of like how it was, where like every group of people had like a little space in between them, but there was like groups of people throughout the whole theater, and just getting to those moments and getting to feel the reactions, or again that when Cyclops, in that same episode when Cyclops goes off in the thing, or just like all of Rogue's little roguisms, where she's like, you're meaner than a possum in a bear trap, or whatever the fuck. She's so shit like that every episode. Great stuff. I have some other stuff to shout out, but I'll wait till next time because it's getting late. Anybody else got anything else?
No, I do not. Oh.
I want to say, so next week we're going to be talking about the Alien septology minus the first 2, because everyone agrees those first 2 are good. Boring hunk shoe. We don't need to talk about. We will talk about them a little bit. We will talk about them some, but
we will all agree they're good.
We will all agree. I think we'll have like a consensus at the beginning that for the most part we all agree that these are the best 2, and that if there's any of these other ones we talk about that we think are better, we can like say that, but we'll be talking about 3, Resurrection, Prometheus, Covenant, and the newest film, Romulus. I've been rewatching them. I'll go ahead and say preview of my opinions. I fucking love Resurrection. What a good movie.
Resurrection's great.
Resurrection's great. Resurrection, you can tell, and I mean this as the biggest compliment, it was made by a French pervert. And
guys, I've said this from the beginning, Joss Whedon can do no wrong.
He's never done anything wrong in his life.
All right, name one thing can't be done.
In 2 weeks, we're going to be talking Twin Peaks Club Volume 7, the last 4 episodes of the original series, and then I also know in September we're going to be doing a Trancers special talking
the people what they want.
The people really want a
you
film.
You demanded it, about and we've listened.
The Charles Band, Tim Thomerson epic sci-fi series Trancers. I want to say thank you to Brian here for composing our outro. Please like, subscribe, do anything to like share this with people. Share this with your dad. There's a lot of dads in this episode. This is a very dad-centric episode. share this one with your dad. Be like, hey, Papa. Hey, Papa. What do you think about this one? And yeah, we're Cinema Curse 666 on Instagram, TikTok, etc. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks everyone here for joining me so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I'll see y'all next time. Bye bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye.